Well, good morning, everybody. It's Friday, June 22nd, and I'm glad you've joined me here on Morning Lights, the last day of the week, and hopefully you're ready for a great weekend. It sure has rained a lot. It goes along with our series this week. I hope you're not drowned out literally at home, so I know we've had a lot of flooding here around our house. So, hey, just want to give a charge today at the end of our week. Nothing real big, but just something that I want to ask you something. What boat do you need to get out of? So many of us stay stranded. You know, Peter and his disciples were in the boat when Jesus came across the water, and they thought, who is this? Is this a ghost? You know, who's coming at us? And there were 12 disciples, think about that. But only one of them got out of the boat. One of them was courageous enough. The other 11 had to have sat fearful, watching what was going on. And I often think, too, even the spies that we talked about a few weeks ago with Caleb and Joshua, out of 12, only 2 gave a good report. 10 sat back and were fearful. What is it? What kind of boat are you stuck in? Is it the boat of fear? Is it the boat of passivity? Is it the boat of your past, of shame and guilt? Is it a boat of anger and resentment? What boat do you need to get out on? What boat is Jesus asking you to come out into the deep and get away from so that he can do a miracle in your own life? I want to encourage somebody today who feels stuck, and there's lots of us that get in that rut. We get lazy, we get self-pitiful, we get in a sense that this is never going to change. This is who I am, this is the life I have. That's not true, because you know something? God is always changing. He is a forever changing God. He's making things new, it says in the Bible all the time, that our God does not sit by and just waste time. He doesn't sit just waiting for the day that Jesus is going to come. The day he's going to send. He is working, he is doing, he's creating, he's going about his business, and I think he wants us to do the exact same thing. He does not want us passively sitting by. He doesn't want us sitting in a show hole at home. He doesn't want us hanging on to our past and hanging on to things that don't matter anymore. Did something happen? Yes. Are you mourning the loss of something? There is a time, it says in Ecclesiastes, a time to cry and to mourn, but there's also a time to move on. And I know a lot of you are struggling with some deep-seated pain. God does not want you staying in that boat of pain and suffering. He doesn't want you staying stuck. He wants you to get out into the water and walk with him and experience something that so few people do. Think of that. Only 1 out of 12 persons went out on the water. Only 2 out of 12 gave a good report. Everybody else was so fearful of the giants in the land of milk and honey, the promised land, that they could have had, but they chose not to go in. They didn't get to go in, God said, because they gave a poor report. What is it? What part of your life are you looking at that you're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is it. This life is pitiful. This is all I have. I'm at a certain age. I'm never going to get any better. Or this is the hand I've been dealt. What is it, that boat that you're sitting in, so to speak, that you allow to fill up and you bail out and fill up and you bail out again? Or a boat that you just passively sit in and you wish and you covet for somebody else's life. Maybe you sit in, watch another boat go by of somebody that's got a good life, and you're like, well, that must be nice to have that life. You can have that life too. Remember, God says, I died to give you life far more than you could ever think or imagine. A measure that we can't even humanly speak of how we could acquire a life that's so great in God. God said, I didn't ask you to sit in the boat, and I didn't ask you to row your own boat or to even sit passively by while I walk by. He says, I bid you to come out with me. I want you to come with me. I want you to experience this miracle that I'm asking you to be a part of. Is it scary? Yes. Is it frightening? Yes. Is it exciting? Yes. It's all those things. And what is it that you could be missing? What miracle could you be missing that God is asking you to come out into? What is it that he has promised maybe for you, has planned for your life, but you choose not to go because you're so afraid of what could be? You know, Peter didn't have any idea what could have been on that night where Jesus said, come on out into the deep with me. So many times we're afraid of the deep water. I know I got swept away one time in an undercurrent. It's terrible. It's a terrible, frightening thing of the ocean that has its own power and its own strength. So I get the fear. I get the literal fear fear of the ocean, but I also get the fear of stepping out. But you know what? We don't ever accomplish anything if we don't step out. There's many things that I have been paralyzed from of fear. I just am paralyzed by fear, so I don't do it, and I live a life of regret later, thinking, why didn't I do that? God had that for me. And I think I've told you guys this before, that that's going to be my greatest fear when I get to heaven, is that did I miss all these things that God had for me to do because I cared too much about what somebody else thought, or the fear factor where Satan would continue to tell me you're not good at this, people aren't going to like you, people are going to make fun of you. You know, Morning Light, I have to share that with you guys. God and I battled for a year to come out into the deep. This was a huge step of faith for me to get up and make myself vulnerable and put myself out there for rejection, and you know, be out there where people could make comments and could oppose me and could make say whatever they wanted about me, because that's not who I am. I'm usually want to stay back. I mean, sure, I like to do speaking engagements, but that's a great fear of mine, is just that rejection. And so, you know, God said, you come out, you go where the people are. I need you to go where the people are. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And it was kind of my boat, so to speak, that I had to step over the edge. I had to step out on the water that was rocking. I'm not saying I stepped out on a calm, glassy sea. It wasn't, because I was scared to death. I was shaking as I did it. So I want to just ask you today and encourage you, what is it? What boat do you need to step out of? What do you need to take a step away from today? Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a relationship. You've been stuck and you're like, I got to get out of this situation. This is not good. And you're thinking, I may lose every friend I have. I may have to start life over, and that's okay. I'm sure Peter, he had to give up some stuff in his experience to walk on water with God. One thing is, he had to give up the security of the boat that he was in. And so you have to weigh those costs, but you also have to weigh the cost of regret, because that weighs so much more than never doing anything. So many times I know we wishful think, and we want this life that somebody else has, and then we become bitter and resentment, and we covet, and we're like, you know, I could have that life, but I can't because I choose not to, is really the bottom line. So God says you can do anything through Christ who strengthens you. So what is it today? What dream? What has he been calling you to? What is it that you have deep in your heart, the dream, the giftedness that you know you're not using because you're afraid, or something else? What is it? So I just want to challenge you today, a big charge out for Friday and this weekend. Think about it, get in the Word, find this story with Peter and the disciples and Jesus walking on the boat, on the water, getting him out of the boat, and just don't miss the opportunity to experience the miracle that Jesus has planned for you, because I know it's a great thing. And just imagine if all of us were afraid, if we just gave up on the fear that the enemy puts in us, and we started doing what God is calling us to. Could you imagine what we could do with the world? We'd be such world changers, and we could turn things around for the better. So just want to encourage you today, get out of your boat, whatever that boat looks like. Get out of it, take a step. Jesus promises to be there with you. He will walk with you. He will hold your hand. And remember, he's the one that calms the seas, the winds, the rain, all of that. And even when it's blowing, and even when it's out of control, he is still in control. So don't be afraid, because, you know, greater is he who's in you than he who's in the world, and you have nothing to fear when you walk with God. So just want you all to have a great weekend. Hope to be back bright and early on Monday morning. Have a great time this weekend. Stay dry, stay warm, and not too hot. I hope the weather has broken for a little bit. So encourage you all just to love up on each other. Remember, you might be the only Jesus that somebody will ever see. So take somebody else by the hand. Maybe they need help getting out of the boat, and encouraging somebody else. You see their potential to be able to say, you know what, come on, I'll go with you too. So encouraging y'all. Love y'all. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.